We literally set that up with less than 30 seconds to spare.
That was weird.
You need to turn that camera right there and slightly zoom it in. Right there. Yours needs zoom out, but it won't.
Maybe I should have checked everything out before we got going. All right, I guess we're going. Are you ready to rock?
I think so. I think we're up and going. I think the stream is live.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, gang, guess what time it is? It is time for the True Wealth Radio Show on this, the greatest Tuesday you have had all week. I am your host, Dave Littlejohn, and in the studio with me today
Matt Dixon.
Matt.
Yes.
Today we are going to break rules.
What did you craft for us today?
There's a few things you're not supposed to discuss around the dinner table, right? You're not supposed to discuss politics, right? You're not supposed to discuss the bedroom, and you're not supposed to discuss
the bathroom.
Okay, and that's the show for the day. Okay, already Matt is winning the day. Good job. No, and of course you're not supposed to discuss religion, right? Politics, religion, and the bedroom are the topics that are radioactive and off limits. So naturally, what do we talk about?
All three on one show.
Many of those as possible.
Can we talk about all three of those today?
I am not scared to do that for sure.
Really, all three?
You know what? Test me. I'm good. I'm not even scared, right? But I am excited about this one. I'm excited because, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of faith and finance today. We teased earlier. It's like, should we name the show, what did we say it was? Why Jesus didn't have credit cards?
Oh, do you got a joke for me?
No.
Oh. I feel like...
Yeah. Hey, Matt, why didn't Jesus have credit cards?
I don't know why.
Because they didn't exist back then. Stupid joke, right? That didn't even work. Now, it's... all right, here's the somber part of this, right? And I'm actually trying to keep some levity in this, but also be respectful, right?
All right.
There has been a lot of activity in the church ethos in the last few weeks, post Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Right? There's been words like revival thrown around, and you're seeing YouTube, and I realize this is. It's kind of radioactive. It is, folks feel strongly the ways that they do, right? This is not to trade on that, nor is this to pick a team per se, but I will tell you, as a fiduciary, one of the things that I am supposed to do.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay, so a fiduciary in the investment landscape in particular is somebody that is supposed to operate with the client's best interest at heart, right? So you're to act in their best interest and not your own. Okay?
That's different than maybe suitability?
Yep, suitability is less about best interest than is it good enough, right? And that sounds kind of lame to say it that way, but it's like, as long as the product, it doesn't hurt them, right? It's fine, right? That's kind of what it means.
And wouldn't you say that there's actually quite a few advisors out there that actually live in suitability land where they don't actually have to do what's in the best interest necessarily? It just has to be suitable?
So, I'm not going to take the bait on that. No, I actually wouldn't say that.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people act in the client's best interest, period. The question is, what's their legal obligation, right? And so if you're not acting in a fiduciary capacity, you do not inherently have the client's best interest as the requirement. Now, there's a lot of movement in the financial industry to try to bring this into sort of the standard ecosystem, where that's just how all financial transactions are presumed to occur, but it's not the legal definition in a lot of circumstances, right? And so I agree with what you're saying. Is would I say a lot of advisors don't operate in that legal space?
Well, they're not required to. Not that they don't, but it's just not part of their legal requirement.
Again, they are, even if they're not required to, they're acting in the customer's best interest.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's a lot of people that's how they operate. In fact, most of the financial professionals I've met are largely attempting to do that. We don't even agree sometimes on what that looks like, right? There is subjectivity to this. But the point is, I need to disclose something, right? If you have a potential conflict of interest, then you explain why you have that conflict. Let's say I wanted to make a recommendation to you and I already owned it. I would need to explain to you, hey, I own this thing, but I'm going to recommend it to you, and you need to weigh whether or not I'm recommending this because it benefits you or because it's benefiting me. So I'm going to hold this potential conflict out and call it to your attention so that you know to assess whether or not I'm being honest with you, right? And the thinking is, if I disclose it, I'm no longer hiding it. That should sort of help inform you as to my position.
And so what are you trying to disclose with this show in particular?
I am a person of faith. Right? As an out-of-the-closet Christian, okay, then it informs my worldview. So if I go talk about things, you have to know, like, where's the source, right? So I'm identifying that to you guys so that you know that as a source. And then we're going to do the best we can to try to just not turn this into an evangelical effort here, but instead let's just talk about kind of what that means for folks. And because there's going to be some of you out there that are going to align immediately and go, yeah, that's my team. That's what I'm about. And there's going to be some other people who go, that is not my team. And what I'm here to say is, I don't know that there's teams in this one when it comes to the way we approach our finances. I think there's some subtlety in value system.
Okay.
And I think for folks of faith that are trying to figure out how their faith aligns with finances, we could talk a little bit about those elements.
What are some of the elements you kind of want to talk about as like an example? What's something that you kind of have in mind as maybe some of the different views that are out there on finance and how it relates? Okay, so some of the things are mechanical things, like is there a difference between how you would invest or navigate the tax world and so forth through a faith-based lens versus a non-faith-based lens, okay? So there's some structural elements. Okay. There's some questions about how does one deal with the excess, right? If you have surplus, what does that look like, and what's the frame up look like? How might debt be approached through different lenses? Faith-based use of debt versus non-faith-based. And the idea here is, again, I'm not going to say one's good and one's bad. That's actually not what I'm here to say. Let's talk about where people often come from, and then what you get to do as a listener here is just kind of assess, well, where do I fall in this, right? And what does this mean, and how am I engaging with it? Because here's the real trick as fiduciaries. Matt, does it make a difference to you, the faith or non-faith of anybody that you serve as a customer? No, because my role is to help everyone out, right? Like if we can have a relationship that makes sense and it's mutually beneficial, then we're going to engage in that and we're going to work together. And so, no, I'm pretty ambivalent on where you stand with that, right? Because like at the end of the day, you know, my role is to serve. So
right, and that's going to be similar for me. Is that it's not a prerequisite that we share a faith, right? My job is to serve, and my job as a fiduciary is to do what's in your best interest, right? Now, might there be circumstances where it's really difficult to reach alignment? Believe it or not, yes, but it's not based on faith. It's usually based on values, right?
I think one of the big ones can be sometimes that person who always just wants to play the game of like more, right? Like, I need my account to grow more and more and more because all they care about is just seeing numbers increase. That can be a slippery slope, right? Because sometimes more is just never enough. And so that person is always kind of unsatisfied because they're like, oh, you know, like 7% wasn't enough this year, even though the market did maybe 6. Like, we should be doing 12 or something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, but hold the phone. Why? And I think that kind of comes into play a little bit with alignment.
Yeah, I think about it's the alignment and the expectation management. Some people come in and they just have unachievable expectations, and that's something where I have to look at them and say, no, this has nothing to do with whether or not it's your faith, right, or lack thereof. It has to do, I need to rephrase that, your faith or whatever your belief system is, right? So it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that what you want is not something I think I can deliver, and I would rather not make a promise that I can't keep. Right.
Yeah.
So like, I just don't want to deal with that issue. So that's one, if you have unrealistic expectations. And there's another one.
What's that?
You're a jerk. Right? Some people are just mean. And life is too short to deal with really toxic people. So I'm like, if you're really toxic, I just don't know that I want to deal with you. And if you're out there going like, screw you, I'm like, we're good. Like, we don't need to. But if you're kind of like, yeah, who wants to be around toxic people? I mean, yeah, I don't want to do that. Right? Life is pretty short. Why surround yourself with people that are just, looking to pick a fight all the time? Like, not my jam.
Yeah, you'd almost rather not make that money than have to deal with a sour relationship.
Yeah, it's just, exactly. It's not worth it. I said, maybe, and the funny thing is, like, I have met so few people that fall in that category. Like, we're pretty flexible, right? Like, I can roll with the punches with most folks. I'm pretty chill about it. So, you'd have to be really remarkable. Like, you'd have to be looking to pick fights in order to be that person usually. So that's pretty rare, but I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
All right. So good. Now we've done all the disclosure of the day, and we know that Jesus didn't have credit cards because they weren't there. Right. And now we can cleverly extort that into some kind of clickbait headline for YouTube, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that will.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so let's unpack this a little bit. This idea that now that the world is sort of looking at this, I want to set the stage with this key word. Right?
Okay.
The word is stewardship. Okay. This is a dog whistle of a word, by the way.
Yeah. How so?
Right. Well, because in the faith-based community, you hear stewardship, and everybody perks up because there's specific references to stewardship. And yet, I think we all kind of know the word, but if outside the faith-based community, I don't know that it has the same weight, which is why for some people, they don't necessarily hear it at all. It's just like, yeah, whatever. But others, it's like, oh my gosh, that thing's an alert status word, right?
Yeah.
So we need to unpack that, right? We need to understand, like, why stewardship and where does this, like, why is it a dog whistle to some people? But I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going, we better take a break. So we'll do that, and then when we come back, we will be unpacking this and a couple of the other elements, like how does debt look and this, that, and the other. But this important break first. So stick around, and we'll catch you on the flip side. I'm Dave Littlejohn.
And Matt Dixon.
And got True Wealth on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. Okay. All right. First segment in the books. I'm wondering, did I just have the headphones quiet? A little bit. Somehow they're working really well today. Like, I can hear them clearly, Matt.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. Except there's this slight lag. Like, if you wear them and talk, you hear yourself echoing.
Huh.
Who are you texting over there?
Jan.
About what?
She sent a chat that I was replying to, and now I'm trying to figure out where on YouTube we can watch the stats in the comments of our video.
Who is asking this?
I'm trying. I'm curious. Oh, there it is.
Oh my goodness.
No signs until it's way too late. So let us take a look before your panel turns into a barbecue pit. Talk Tudor Electric at 672-3333.
Well.
That's 672-3333.
Okay. The part, so Matt forgets that during the break, we're still live streaming.
Right.
And so he stops looking at the cameras and he gets to doing whatever he's doing over there.
I've almost got it.
He's fascinated with data. This happens, by the way, in our investment committee too. We'll be doing something and go, well, and then I saw this thing, and then before you know it, he's off researching. And we're like, Matt. And he's like, no, I got to go do this research. So, man who loves to learn. I like that about him. Okay, you're back on.
Okay.
Oh, wait. No, you're not.
It says we have 15 messages, and I don't know how to view them.
It doesn't, in OBS, is there like a window for it?
Not that I can see, and so I'm trying to
Just open YouTube and look at it?
Yeah, because what if someone has a question? We've been getting a lot of comments lately.
I don't know.
I'd like to be able.
What if we have a question? What do we do if there's a question? We answer it
I'd
later?
like to be able to see them.
Well, you're going to just have to ask Jan to text them to you.
Yep. All right, Jan. Send us all of the...
All right, gang, welcome back to the True Wealth Radio Show. Dave Littlejohn in studio with...
Matt Dixon.
Okay, and there's now a big Oregon flag in the studio, by the way, which, just so you guys know...
Abomination.
I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but there was a big football game over the weekend, and they did manage to pull that out.
Yep.
So that worked out okay.
Yeah, the Ducks actually look like they have a team that could go the distance potentially this year.
Oh, Matt's trying to jinx it, though.
I am, because I'm not an Oregon fan, and I want them to lose. So
Okay, so...
some
there you
people
have
are
it,
just
everybody.
full of bitterness, right? Like,
The glass starts half empty. What can I say?
Yeah.
I am, of course, as somebody that was neither a duck nor a beaver, I'm like, I just love to see when the Oregon schools are successful. And then all the people that are like really diehards about it, they're like, yeah, you're just a poser. I'm like, okay. Yeah, you just adopt whichever team is working. I'm like, no, they're like, I love all of my adopted kids. They're the best.
oh my.
Whatever. All right. So Matt, we talked before the break about the dog whistle word stewardship.
Yep.
Okay. So for a second here, what am I when I say that? First of all, tell our listeners, what am I kind of talking about?
Yeah, I think you're just talking about there's different lenses that we use to look at finances, and some of them are through kind of that stewardship lens where it's more of like a faith-based look, and then you have kind of a more secular view where it's like an ownership lens, right? Where it's like, those are my resources, that's the money I've earned, and so it's more of a possessive kind of take on money, whereas the other that I mentioned, it's more of a, well, I've been given this resource, it's not fully mine, how am I supposed to use it?
Yeah. Well, as I've often said, I've been, maybe you have earned the resource, but in the sense like you did work and it's in your life because of, but yeah, there's kind of a difference between, ownership is like, this resource is here to serve me, versus stewardship is this resource actually sort of belongs to somebody else and I'm the one that's in charge of it. And so I need to make good decisions with this in order to sort of honor the intent of the owner. Right, and so it's a difference. It's a little bit of a difference from a service perspective, right? Who does it serve? Like the steward is the person in control of the asset is serving somebody else with it, versus the owner of the asset, which is the asset is to serve the owner, right? Now, let's be really clear about that. There are, legally speaking, we do have ownership standards in our country, right? So owner and steward are, often the same thing. It's like, hey, if you don't have a mortgage anymore because you own your house, right, you're legally responsible for it. And then, but if the attitude is, well, it's one of the resources that I steward, okay, then does it change how you treat it, right? But that's kind of where that comes from. Again, under the lens, through the lens of faith, there's sort of a different perspective in what these resources do or why they are there, right?
Okay.
And I guess that's what it comes down to. My goal is not to turn this into a sermon-style event, though, right? That's another, if you want a sermon-style event, I suppose we can do a whole separate one, but our live radio show, that's not what we're about. Like, we really are like this is for everybody, okay? But I still think we get this question enough that it's worth addressing on the show today. So let's think about, stewardship over, first, resources, right? And I'd like to ask you a question about, mechanically, what do we do different for somebody that comes in and says, hey, I'm faith-based and, I want to, plan for my financial future, versus somebody that it never comes up at all. They just kind of come in the door and they're like, hey, I just want to plan for my financial future. Okay. What looks different?
I don't know that it is radically different, right? Like, we're still doing a lot of the same type of planning. The only real difference that I've maybe kind of seen is a lot of people, when it maybe comes time for them to take like their RMD as an example, a lot of people, given their financial circumstances want to, instead of like taking that, sometimes they'll just go ahead and donate that money to like one of the institutions that, you know, they align with, whether it's a church or something similar. So maybe using their RMD for a giving purpose.
It's funny because, you know, my answer would have been
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
like it's
but-
really, there's no structural differences in the approach.
No,
Right.
but sometimes, you know, people do ask for something more specialized where it's like, hey, I want to make this a kind of center point of my finances. And then, you know, there is a different layer of planning, I think, that kind of goes around what you can do with resources if that's a big, you know, cornerstone of what you want to do.
Yeah, I find that for the most part, the Venn diagram between faith-based and non-faith-based money management and investment management and really planning is really high, right? There's probably like 3 areas that to me show up as differences, and they're more philosophical differences than mechanical, right? One of them is the area of giving, right? Is giving something that you do because it's something that you can give because, you know, it's an option versus is giving something that is somewhat of a requirement, right? And requirement might be heavy-handed, but it's the idea of the perspective on giving, right? Like why are we doing it? Is it a perk or not a perk, right? If it's a requirement, giving's not a perk. It's part of what you do. If it's not a requirement, then giving's like, hey, I can do this because that's neat.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a difference that shows up, right? The concept of tithing versus donating, right? So that's a difference. A biggie is the difference on the perspective on debt. I think we could probably do like a lot on this subject of like how is debt viewed differently. And we're talking about both secure debt and unsecured debt, and what does that mean in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
You've maybe heard of this guy, Dave Ramsey. He's made kind of a career out of just the get out of debt guy.
Yep.
And there's a reason that resonates so well with people, right? It's a big part of our life and how we operate these days.
Yo, debt's massive.
It's a
I mean, the
really
country
big
keeps,
deal.
Yeah, on average, people keep taking on more and more debt every single year.
And so, you know, the question is, like, is that okay? Right? Well, what about student debt? What about getting a vehicle? What about buying a house? What about having my credit cards? What about medical debt, right? All of those different things are worth discussing. And they can look, what's funny is they look different through the lens of faith, but pragmatically speaking, they're still not very different, right? Debt operates the same regardless of your perspective because, as the joke goes, math is math.
Yeah.
Right? And so, you know, debt is debt, but how you philosophically approach using it or not using it tends, you know, oftentimes gets differentiated through the lens of faith or not through the lens of faith, right? And then the last one is really the types of things that people invest in, right? And more specifically is, do people avoid certain investments because they would say, well, this doesn't align with my faith because it represents X, or I've seen people that say, I want to invest in this thing because it aligns with my faith because of Y. Right? And I've seen interesting ones, right? I've seen people that said, I need to go buy ABC company because I believe that they're going to be blessed by God. And I'm like, well, right? I'm not here to argue one way or the other. It's like, you know, if you want to tell me why you believe that, I'm here to help you assess, is this good in your plan, you know, or not? And what are the ramifications of the decision, right? So, you know, and then, I don't know, the toughest one to me is when people say, I want to avoid things like sin stocks, right?
That's
That's a slippery slope, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because a lot of these really big corporations, when you get down to the root of, you know, how they operate, you're going to find something in there that you don't align with, right? And so that's a hard one because if you go that path, you're probably going to eliminate most companies from being investable.
Yeah, it just depends on like how far down the rabbit hole of definition you go. But the truth of the matter is, one of the fundamental things. Remember, there's I believe it's 2 Timothy says, the love of money is the root of many evils. Right? It's sometimes said that money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. Like, that's not what the Bible says, I should say. There's, many different versions of this, but
Right.
it is the love of money is the root of many evils, right? And I think that's really important for us to understand is that corporations, by definition, are to serve the shareholders, and they are to produce profits, right? And sometimes producing profit at what cost, right? Short-term profits, long-term profits, are what are we advancing and what are we overlooking in order to achieve those profits? And so somewhat embedded in the definition is that profit's part of the motive. So then you get into, okay, well, what are the ethics behind it, right? And there's a lot of gray area and nuance to this, which is why it's really hard to peg which companies are, air quotes, good or not good, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. I don't know how many angels dance at the head of that pin, but the answer is, undetermined. Yeah, what's that pen look
13.
like? 13 angels, all right. That's good.
Yeah.
We have an answer
Quantitative.
finally.
Yeah, you've been asking that question for years. I figured it was time to give you a number.
My gosh, I expected to feel more peace out of it too, but
Yeah.
nope.
Nope.
All right, so I feel like the debt one is one that's worth spending a little bit more time on. But
Yeah.
as I look at the clock, I'm thinking this is a perfect time.
Should we come back to that
Yeah,
one?
Why don't we grab a quick break? We will come back, and then we're going to kind of unpack like the whole Dave Ramsey approach to debt. First of all, not all debt's the same, and we're not here to tell you you made bad decisions or you're a bad person or something like that. But we're going to talk about debt through different lenses. Stick around. I'm Dave Littlejohn.
And Matt Dixon.
And you got True Wealth on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. Okay, once again, guys, it's like 1,000,000 degrees. All right, it's not really that hot. It's like 700,000 degrees.
Yeah, we
Here.
just need some water so that we can pour it
It
on
would
whatever's so
it would
hot in this room.
steam if
Yeah.
we had water in here.
Turn it into the sauna show.
I'm worried that the solder on the circuit boards of our cameras is going to melt. And all the chips are just going to slime off. And they're like, well, now what? How are we going to do a show with a bunch of pools of solder on the ground? Do we have any stuff on our feed? Are they saying anything to anyone?
I don't know. Let's check. Yes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Is it all our people?
Yes.
That's funny.
No. It's listeners.
Oh, well, what is it this time? Or is it like a bot saying, hey, buy Bitcoin from me?
Hold on, I'm trying to find a good one here.
Okay.
Someone said buy cannabis stocks.
Yeah, it always happens, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody's like, gotta go buy cannabis stocks, and then you gotta go, buy some kind of crypto. That's another one. Right? My favorite lately is I get these texts that say like, oh, hey, I'm back from the airport. Did you pick up the dog already? Something like that, where it's like somebody's they're looking for me to respond, I think, and say, I think you got the wrong number. To which they're like, great, now I validated that your cell phone is real and I'm going to start pinging you with garbage.
Oh.
I'm just like, sorry, I guess your dog's going to be left at the kennel if you have the wrong number. That's a tough break.
Do you ever enjoy telemarketers?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Every now and then I'm just like, okay.
My favorite is to try and sell the telemarketer something.
Ah, that's an interesting twist.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite thing to sell them?
Moonshine.
Really? Mm-hmm. Does it work?
No.
No, they
But
just
it's
get
fun.
frustrated.
Yeah.
I sometimes will keep them on for a while and then get circular in the logic just a little bit, because they get in trouble if it goes too long because it's wasting their time and they are not moving on to the next person.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll stay on there for a really long time.
Yes. Yeah. I don't do that when I don't have the time for it. The other is to just answer and then just put the phone down so they can hear that I'm working and doing stuff, but I'm not responding. And it's like they hear the keyboard clicking and
My
you just hear
favorite
stuff
one.
in the background.
My favorite one is to agree to buy whatever it is they're selling, and then I will be like, all right, I got my credit card right here, and then I will give them a card number.
Okay.
And
No.
Yes. And then I'll give them a different number, and they'll be like, oh, you mixed
You're
it
like,
up.
no, you're doing. Welcome back to the True Wealth Show, where Matt is
I'm revealing secrets on how to really get a telemarketer.
how to really handle telemarketing calls.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there you go.
And if you missed it, catch the podcast.
I think this is a fine idea. We are live streaming on YouTube, by the way, so you're welcome to check it out there. And there's a contest going on about, am I better off with low lighting or no lighting? So, but I think the full lighting, not so good. So today, walking through some of the different, I think the dog whistle term of the day was stewardship, and what does that mean? And so we are comparing and contrasting some of the, some of the ways that people view debt. And the compare and contrast today is kind of specifically, is there a differentiation between the way the faith-based community views debt and the non-faith-based community?
We had a viewer on our live stream just ask a question. You want to field the question?
What is
you
the
can
question?
Try. Fundamental question here is corporatism ethical?
What a great question, right? Mm-hmm. It's embedded in all of this too, because there is kind of a faith element to it. I think that is corporatism ethical? I would say that it is neither ethical nor unethical. It's how it is practiced by the people in it, right? I don't think corporatism is inherently unethical, but I think that if you were to be a shareholder, an ethical shareholder would also say, look, the company needs to run an ethical business and generate profits in an ethical way, and that's how we do this. If the idea is that as a shareholder, I can sort of be absolved of any responsibility for the corporation, and I just get the money blindly, and that makes it okay. Mm-hmm. I think the delinking of the sort of the ethics and the moral guardrails is the problem of corporatism, and we have seen different efforts to try to regulate or whatnot, and this is the problem, is you have operators that are willing to be unethical in a corporate environment, and then it becomes unethical. But if you have an ethical operator in that environment, I don't think it's inherently right, wrong, or otherwise. I mean, of all of the different structures, it's a reasonable way to raise capital to create a larger enterprise, right? It's fairly well structured in its concept. So,
but in raising capital, you are then borrowing money.
No, you're not.
Well, in some instances,
no.
I mean,
No. If you're raising debt, you would be, but
right.
Raising capital in equity,
most do take on some debt. You know what I mean?
I think we're mixing two different things, though.
Okay.
Right? Because if you think about, I just went to my friends and family and raised a bunch of money and said, look, I just raised $1 million to start a new enterprise, and the enterprise value is now valued at $1 million, mm-hmm. and everybody has their proportionate ownership.
Okay.
Right? Then we all have equity in the enterprise. That's not debt. We all invested in it, and now we own a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
Now, if the enterprise craters and disappears, then okay, your equity's gone. But it's actually not debt, it's direct ownership. Right? Debt would be, we borrowed money, and that enterprise has to pay everybody back.
Well, that's what I was getting to is, further down the line, most of these corporations do have a pretty heavy debt load.
Yes.
Right? And so that's where I was going.
And you know what? The reality is that the system incentivizes it. Mm-hmm. Right? And that for companies to grow, then this is where you really get into the question is, okay, so corporations take on debt, right? Mm-hmm. Because they have an obligation to the shareholder, and because there can be things like arbitrage, right? Companies growing at 20% a year, and they can get financing at 5%. Why wouldn't you borrow money at 5% if you can grow it at 20?
Right.
Right? Those are fiduciary type questions, but it's a different perspective on debt, because that's really agnostic to anything but the math.
Right.
Right? And then you have other corporations.
That's more of an investment than a liability.
Right? And so, this is an example of like when Apple had so much money that it was, but they had such strong borrowing power, it was cheaper for them to keep their capital, take out debt financing, and pay the dividend with the debt financing, because they could keep the cash and grow it faster than if they paid the cash out and then, did it the other way. So it was like, well, that was an interesting strategy, is that,
Right.
we can go ahead and, our borrowing is so cheap that we can borrow it at, less than it's going to cost us to operate. So, different scenario there. But let's talk about like more grassroots and ground level
Okay.
here.
What are you thinking?
Well, just the concept of the different types of debt and why these end up being viewed differently, right? Like, why does Dave Ramsey get so bent about this?
I think it's because people in their nature are not super well controlled, right? And so they lack control, and they get themselves in situations that are pretty dicey, and they end up in a ton of debt, and there's not a real good way out for them. People kind of lack control. And when he gives you his platform and his method, you're giving up a lot of kind of the control of the finances, and you're putting it more in a system.
Interesting. I mean, I guess the term control, it's so funny because it's such an American, response, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no control. I get freedom to do what I want, right? But what it sounds like, maybe if I were to use a different term, it's like guardrails, right? Hey, people don't operate with guardrails a lot of the time. They kind of say, well, I want what I want. And so they'll kind of go justify whatever they're going to do. And then they find themselves in a bad spot. And so what Ramsey says is like, this is a system, right? If you follow the system and you don't think about it and you just do it, then it will sort of save you from yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And, I've tried to nuance before the pros and the cons. The issue is that a lot of people that, if you find yourself behind the power curve, you need a kind of a fairly idiot-proof way to get back out. And what Ramsey offers is that. Like, the system works because, look, if you spend less than you make, and then you take the excess and you apply it to debt, and you can have more excess than the debt service costs you, eventually you'll pay it down. And if you keep doing that until you have no debt, and then you save up and you buy things without using debt from that point forward, you won't be in debt because you don't have it. So you will eventually work your way to financial freedom. It's not the fastest pathway, right? But it is a very, very safe pathway. Like, you don't screw it up much.
Right.
And so that's why he keeps doing this. And I see over time the value in that, right? That if you have not developed the skill set yet to manage money, this is a really good fundamental blocking and tackling kind of way to approach it.
Yeah.
But underneath it all, one of the things I've always thought was interesting about Dave Ramsey is he will give people answers to say, well, do you want a faith-based answer or just kind of what the world's going to tell you? And this is about things like marriage advice and things like that.
Yeah.
And depending on the answer, he will, follow through with it. But a lot of people will say, I want the faith-based answer. And so I'm going to just speak to our listeners for a minute and say, what's the sort of the faith-based implications of debt? Right? Right? If you say, well, I'm going to have credit cards and this is just how I'm going to live my life. Okay. But
You're talking like carrying balances on them every month that roll.
well, let's talk about the difference here. Okay. Is credit card debt a problem?
No, it's one of the biggest problems that this country faces, for sure. Yeah.
Is the credit card a problem?
It's not the credit card as much, in my opinion, as it is the person who has control of it, right? It's the person that's doing the swiping.
It's operator error.
Yeah.
This is something where it's a subtle thing, but Dave Ramsey would admit to this. He's a smart dude, right? He would say, like, look, I can't go out there and tell people a credit card's okay, right? And he'll say things like, you handle snakes long enough, you're going to get bit. To which I would say that's probably true, right? You get a fee, you get something, and you're like, that's frustrating, right? And he says you're paying the stupid tax. But I might also say you're paying a tax for a certain amount of ease of use, right? And there's a certain amount of consumer protection that comes with credit cards that doesn't come through other pathways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so,
I mean,
there's very few places where there's a difference between cash and credit anymore. Right? There are some places where it costs more, but most of the time it's the same because the vendor is absorbing the cost for you, right? So they get hurt on margins, but the credit card company, it's going to cost the same to you.
yeah.
If you pay it off every month and you never pay interest, then what?
Yeah, I mean, there's a Bible verse about this, actually. It's Proverbs 22. It's 26 and 27. It says, do not be one who shakes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. And here's the kicker, right? if you lack the means to pay. And then it goes on to say, your very bed will be snatched from under you.
Aha.
That's,
Now,
to me, the biggest piece.
this is super fun because Matt and I had a conversation about this earlier today, and now you've pulled this verse up. So can you share with our listeners just like the quick overview of what that conversation was about regarding credit cards?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's this concept of, are credit cards inherently bad, right? And I'm not going to do this conversation nearly as much justice as you would, but basically, I kind of took the stance of, I don't think that the credit card is inherently evil. And I gave the example of back in the day, you would go to work, you would do a day's labor, and then you'd get paid and you'd use that money to go buy your food or whatever you needed to buy for that day. And now we live in an era where all of your labor, the payment for that is delayed 30 days. And so I was like, well, to me, the way I look at a credit card personally, it's a way to pay for the food and the other different things until that paycheck comes in, and then you can cover your cost of living where your payment was delayed. And you kind of took another approach.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I'm looking at the clock here. This is a really interesting time to take a break because I want to share with you what is the flip side of this argument. Because you're saying, hey, I'm not going to get paid for 30 days, so the credit card will bridge the gap. I'm going to take a different position, but we're going to take our last break. So when we come back, we'll unpack it, and I'll explain, okay, I see what you did here, but this is where I want to shed some more light. I'm not going to give you the answer yet. You got to stick around. We'll be right back. This is Dave Littlejohn.
And Matt Dixon.
You got True Wealth on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN.
There it is.
Boom.
We're at our last break.
I wonder who that question came from about corporatism.
Yeah.
If a buried natural
I bet you'd never guess.
I never would.
You may see dead vegetation, hear a
Wait.
hissing noise, or
Mai Tai?
because it has a rock that's easily detectable. If so, get far away and call 911.
They asked another question for you because they love the answer so much.
Get everyone
Is
to
it
ride fast.
is it ethical to legally limit accountability? I'm going to read that one more time to myself. Is it ethical to legally limit accountability?
Well, I've got an interesting answer for that. Maybe I answer that right now because I don't know it's going to make the live show. So here's kind of the way I would answer. Is it ethical to limit the liability of someone? And I would say it depends on the circumstance. Let me give you an example. Like typically I would say no. However, if the person is involuntarily put into a contract, then I would say yes. Here's an example. I have an emergency room event, I'm taken into a hospital with a medical event, and I am unconscious, and they take me through a whole bunch of stuff that ends up being $1 million billion.
Okay.
I had no say in it whatsoever, they just did it all, and then afterwards they're like, here's your bill, you're indentured for life, right? Is there a point at which we say, there was no consent to that, even though we saved their life? What if they'd have said like, well, if it costs more than this much, just let me go? Right? They didn't get that opportunity, and so there was just implied consent, and then they end up with a massive bill. And that's the one where I go, was it ethical to saddle them with an impossible bill because they had no say in the pricing structure or anything else? They just got a massive bill for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tricky, right?
Tricky. Where did we leave off? What were we even
Hey
talking
gang,
about?
welcome back to the home stretch of the True Wealth Show. So where we left, Matt, good question.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is it the credit card question of how do we approach, credit cards? And we're kind of looking at debt through the lens of, we're saying, I'm looking at this through a faith lens right now. And again, if you haven't listened to the rest of the show, we're not saying this is the right way or the wrong way. We're saying this is just the way that a lot of the faith-based community looks at this, right? So the issue here is using the credit card. The problem is you put yourself in a cycle of paycheck to paycheck every time. If you use the credit card to bridge the gap, and then what happens if something goes wrong and you don't get paid? Now you have a debt. right? So you've inadvertently created a debt. Now, would you say, well, the problem is that the employer owes me money now, so they created the debt? Say, yeah, that's actually true. But nevertheless, the credit card company isn't the one that made the deal with the employer. You did, right? You were the middleman, and you put yourself in the precarious position of somebody else welching on you, and now you do not have adequate resources to pay that bill. I would suggest if you're going to operate this way, you need to have the equivalent of a fund that is capable of completely paying off the credit card.
Oh yeah.
And at which point you say, well, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I'm using the credit card to facilitate what I do, and then I pay it off every month. And even if I have an interruption in income, I have enough reserves that I just pay it off and it's done.
Yeah.
So in which case I would say if you have adequate liquid reserves earmarked for that purpose, you're actually not carrying debt. Not in the sense of, how we view it, right? Like it's not unsecured, right? It's secured with collateral that is the cash in your account. So it's not, and I think there's a key difference between secure debt and unsecured debt. Here's where I would take it, Matt. The faith-based community, just like you said, the verse you just read in Proverbs, right? You don't want to have your bed snatched away because, you have these debts that have frittered yourself away. There's also the element of who do you serve, right? If you have debt, you've essentially made a promise to pay that back. If something else happens, you need to honor that promise.
Well, yeah.
And if that promise conflicts with something that is what you're being asked to do, and again, from the faith community, say like if God instructs you to do something different, and now the debt encumbers you from doing that, you have placed something between you and your ability to serve the Lord.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a problem.
In that same chapter right before it, it said the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is the slave to the lender.
Yeah. And these are really powerful things to consider here.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a faith-based bit of advice. I think that's just advice. Right? I think the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender.
Yep.
Period. Like full stop. Like that's just how it works. Right? And if your solution out there is to say like, well, you can always declare bankruptcy or something, it's like, okay, you can use the legal system to welch on your word.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not trying to throw somebody under the bus. If you've gone through that, I'm not judging you for it. I'm saying you've been through the problem. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't know anybody that's ever been through that process that says, I can't wait to do it again. Like nobody. This is not how that goes down, right? And so again, don't mistake this as a judging thing. Let's just look at it for what it is though. That's the problem, right? Whereas if it is secured, right, hey, I have a mortgage, but if I can't pay it, what happens? Well, they take my house and they sell it and they give me back any of the equity that was there, and then I have to go start over, right? But the lender recovers what they get from the collateral, and then I get what's left. What if it's upside down? Well, now you get a different problem, don't you? It's not secured anymore. Yeah. And then you talk short sales and you talk other tax issues, and it starts to get kind of messy again because it's not adequately secured. Right? And that's the dance of debt that you need to be careful with. I think it's not uncommon to hear, like, there's a philosophy out there. This one is really aggressive, right? It's the, what do they call it? Like, I think they call it build, borrow, die. Right?
Yeah, I've heard that one.
And essentially, you create something, and then you pledge it as, so like you buy a building, it goes up in value, then you refinance the building and take the equity out, buy more buildings, they go up in value, they refinance and take it out. But when you take the debt out, that's your spending money, but it's not reportable as income, right? Because you're supposed to pay it back. And so what do? You just keep building and building and building, and you keep taking on more debt, but you keep buying more assets. And as long as the assets go up in value and you can keep refinancing them, and it works out okay. Like, where have we seen this before? Elon Musk.
Creating like a phantom wealth almost on stuff that
I mean, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and even Bill Gates to a certain extent are probably the most famous for this. Because what have they done? They have stock in huge companies, they pledge the stock as collateral, pull the money out of the bank in order to pay for it, and then the stock goes up in value, and what do? They use that stock to essentially secure more loan. So they're not even paying it back, they just keep qualifying to borrow even more. So they're kind of borrowing even the interest too. Eventually, when they die, there's a step up in basis on all those assets, and then the loans get paid off on the step up in basis, and then the estate tax shows up for ultra wealthy, and that's when the government finally gets paid. So whenever he says the rich never pay their taxes, so they do when they die, or the rich all give it away to foundations before they die.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, like, well, why did Warren Buffett give all his wealth away? It's like, well, he could do that, or he could give it to the government. Mm-hmm. Right? So give it to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then that circle stays in charge of it.
Yep.
And there you have the dirty secret of the sort of the build, borrow, die scenario. Does it work? Sure, as long as the stock keeps going up.
Yeah,
right?
Or the asset keeps appreciating.
That's the thing. If Tesla were to reverse course and go the other direction, the Elon Musk, who goes back and forth as the world's richest man, could be the not world's richest man anymore in a hurry.
It doesn't,
the world's most underwater.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't work real well if a recession turns into a depression.
Right. So anyway, that's a really interesting one. But I do think that it's important when I look at those differences. The faith-based community sees through the lens of stewardship. You go, hey, well, debt is something that gets between you and the ability to fulfill whatever your purpose is. Versus debt's just a tool to be utilized, right? Interestingly enough, there are a bunch of people in the non-faith-based community that also don't like debt. They do not like what it represents, and they don't like the obligation to somebody else, so they're just debt-free, and that works. Mm-hmm. Right? Because guess what? These principles work regardless of your faith, right? The truth doesn't change because of your belief system. Truth is just truth, right? Math is math. It's pretty agnostic. So that's the cool part about this whole thing.
Well,
so there you go. What's the if you could say from all of this, what's the one thing that you would probably be careful of, Matt? I'm hinting at something we talked about that was really important to the theme of the show that you brought up.
Oh man, off the whole show.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you a hint. It just has to do with selling.
I think that for me personally, I actually like the debt portion of this show probably the best, because I think it's the section of the show that talks to the most people. A lot of people have struggled with it in the past, overcome it, or they're dealing with it right now. Mm-hmm. So to me, that was actually my personal favorite part of this, and the biggest takeaway.
The part that I want to caution everybody about is it's this too. A practitioner that wants to hold themselves out and say, look, I'm a person of faith, that makes me safe. I would be really careful about that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not safe, but to me, what you do is you go out there and walk the walk. Right? You don't have to wave a flag and say, I'm okay because. Just go do the right thing as best you can, right? And I realize the right thing has got some subjectivity to it. People are like, is that the right thing or not? But that's my bigger point is, it's not because somebody says, you don't say like, well, I'm a good person, right? That makes me good, but go do business with me. Like, no, go do the job well for people. That's why when we talk about in our firm, we're faith forward, but like we're going to take anybody that walks in the door and we're going to try to treat them with kindness, respect. We're going to try to do an excellent job for them. That's our job, right? It's not to evangelize or something like that. I mean, there's a place for that, but that's not what we're doing. We're here to serve people. That's what our business does for you. And so at the end of the day, I mean, if we're aligned in faith, wonderful. But if we're not, don't expect to be judged for that. We've got a job to do for you. We're going to do the best we can to do well for you. Right?
Do you want to talk a little bit for just a brief moment about what the business actually does for people? So how do people get served? In what ways?
At the core of what we do for people, we help them get retired and stay retired. There's a whole protocol to that, right? So there's the planning aspect, there's the investing aspect, there's the tax management aspect, there's risk management, insurance, and all those elements, but that all gets folded into the way we bake the cake, right? But in the simplest terms, if you don't want to work forever, right, and you may still want to work, but you don't want to have to work forever. Our job is to help you get to a point where you can be financially independent so that you work because you want to, not because you have to. That's what we do, right? And if you've got somebody else that can help you, great. If you can learn from us, great. If you'd like to work with us, that's great too. How do they reach us, man?
Yeah, 541-375-0898. Or you can go to the website at littlejohnfs.com. There's a lot of ways to reach us. Whoop. Man, that was a quick exit.
It was. All right. Well, that was the show. We had to cut off because we weren't aware of the time.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? There'll be time next time or whenever that is. Hey, I get to say this on the YouTube channel. I don't necessarily share it on the radio. The reality is that, I mean, we are a faith-based firm. It's neat to be equally yoked, but I think the most important thing is it's not faith-based around the concept of judging anybody, right? We'll take exactly how you're at. We're not going to try to change your mind or anything like that. We're just not going to change what our value system is either. Like, this is kind of what we believe in and it's what we do. But I will say this, and I'll say it again and again. Like, we want you to learn. Everybody needs to address this stuff, right? The world's not going to do it for you, so it's going to be up to you to take charge of this thing. So we're trying to help you make better decisions. Find somebody that you like and trust. If it's not going to be you, if you don't have that somebody, give us a shot if we can help. And if not, hey, we appreciate the time.